In this lesson, we'll take a look at how we could repurpose existing geometry to create new pieces. So here is our engine in its current state, and let's say that we want to add now some pieces coming around the exterior of this piece. Now we could go in and model those from scratch, or we can repurpose and reuse the geometry that we've already created, and I think that's a good way to go in a lot of cases. So what we want to do is select the polygons that we want to reuse. So in this case, I'm going to just select this loop, and let's go into our selection rollout, and we'll say grow, and just create a selection like that. So we've got maybe a couple of rows going in and then a couple coming out, so something along those lines. All right, and so we want to reuse these. We don't want to delete them. We don't want to extract them or detach them from this geometry. We want to actually copy them. So what we can do is go down to edit geometry, which is going to be in my case under edit polygons. We'll look for the rollout. And here we've got something called detach. And so this is where we're going to be able to attach geometry to other pieces of geometry. We're going to be able to detach pieces of geometry. So there are some options here for slicing. This is where we've got cut. So a lot of options in here as well. So what we're going to do is detach. This is going to bring up an option for us to detach. So we can detach to another element within this editable poly, or we can detach it as a clone. So if we detach as clone, say OK to that, that's going to create an entirely new object that contains those polygons. So the polygons on our original have not been touched, but now we have a new object with just those polygons. So from this point, we can decide what exactly we want this to look like. So I think instead of following this line, we want to make things a little bit different. So I'm going to go to border selection. Let's select this border here, and now we can manipulate this. So I can scale this down. Okay, and this is on the new piece of geometry that we have. We can also go to an edge selection, shift select that loop, and then we can modify this edge. So we can start to come in and bring this in and really define how these pieces are going to look. Now keep in mind, we are going to be deleting some geometry here. So I'll kind of bring this, pull this in a little bit. Okay, let's maybe take this edge and just pull it out slightly. Okay, now we'll think about what parts of this geometry we want to keep. I want to have this kind of ridge, strut coming in here. So I'm going to actually start to delete some of this geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. This is on either side of the midpoint. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing down here. Okay, and so I'm going to delete one more on this side, one on this side, and then let's do one more. So we've got basically 3 on either side. Now we're going to keep these 2, so we'll skip those. Okay, and then let's come down here, do the same thing. So we'll leave 3 and do the same thing over here. And again, I'm just holding down shift when I select the second polygon. Okay. And I did delete one too many. So I'll undo that. Make sure you just leave 3 on either side on the top and the bottom. We'll leave these 2 and then delete that and delete that. So that leaves us, and let's do the same thing up here. And it's going to leave us with these separate pieces here. So right now, if we were to go ahead and select the elements by element, we could select each of these individual pieces, okay, because they're separated. So that means I can select this whole thing and delete it very quickly rather than trying to select individual polygons there. So now we're left with these pieces of geometry. Now if you like, you have these temporary colors that you can add. If you want to distinguish this, you can go ahead and just click on that swatch and add another color if you want to be able to see this a little bit more easily. So now that we have this geometry, the next thing we want to do is maybe add some thickness to it. Okay, and so to do that, one of the ways is to actually just use a modifier, and that's going to be a shell modifier. So let me go ahead and drop that on. Now right now you can see that this is actually adding an inner amount, so the outer portion is remaining the same, but it's actually pushing that in, and you can see I can change the value here. I want to actually create an outer amount. Okay, we can give it a little bit of an inner mount if we want to, but it's already right on top of that geometry, so it really is only going to matter right in here. So we'll take the outer amount and just give ourselves a little bit of room here to create this kind of pieces that stick out. Okay, so these kind of struts, and you can modify the geometry in here if you want to kind of push and pull that in. You can do that as well. Now looking at this, go ahead and select this, and we can turn on this, turn off edged faces. Now looking at this, you can see it's very faceted. Same thing in here. Well, we can modify our normals, and one of the ways that we can do that is just to use our graphite modeling tools, and these are going to be really useful for us, and we're going to be using these later on as well. I'm just going to double click to open that up, and here you can see all the way at the right of the graphic modeling tools tab is hard, smooth, and smooth 30. So hard is going to harden everything, smooth is going to smooth everything, and smooth 30 is going to create smoothing. You can see right in here where this angle is such that it gets smooth, and then these hard angles don't get smooth. So that's what I'm going to set mine to, and I'm going to do the same thing on this geometry here. Okay, so you can see that the side edges are hard, but the edges here are soft. So if we want to get a little bit more of an edge here, for instance, maybe kind of right in here, we can select these edges, and I'm just going to actually collapse. Take that down to 0. And actually, before I do that, I just want to grab these points right in here. I just want to even those out a little bit. So I'm going to just control click those points, and I just want to pull them out along the X. Maybe scale them in a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and collapse the stack. We'll convert this to an editable poly. Let's go ahead and get our edge selection. Okay, so we can come in here, and now let's say I want to add a couple of edges here instead of this, just the one. So to do that, I'll go down to Edit Edges, and I will chamfer that. So this will bring up our in context direct manipulation UI, and we can change the values here. I'm going to kind of dial this down to a smaller value here. Okay, we can also change the number of segments and open that if we want to. We'll just say OK to that. Let's go ahead and do it again. Say OK. And then if we want to go ahead and do the same thing over here, we could do both of these at the same time. Go ahead and smooth that. And now we get a little bit more of an edge right there that's being created by that chamfer. Okay, if we wanted to, we can kind of smooth out those other edges. But just play around with it a little bit. If you want to kind of chamfer this edge here to make it a little bit softer, or you can have kind of a hard edge there as well, you can do that. It's up to you. So the next thing that we want to look at, now that we've used our geometry to create new pieces, the next thing that we want to do is to create some kind of sharp edged pieces up here. And up to now we've been using polygons. Let's take a look at how we can use and work with splines. So we'll do that in the next lesson.